it is very important to look at the state of the economy. There are many measures that the government has to bring in as part of the Union Budget 2025. It is also very important that the benefit of the present budget should go to the middle class segment. For the middle class, this avenue is not open. Middle class work very hard. Exemption or deduction wherein the middle class don't pay tax up to, you see the real estate prices are skyrocketing, especially in the metro cities. Middle class has cut down their consumption by 30% and poor people have cut down their consumption by 69%. We cannot categorize the government scheme as a freebie. It is a right of every poor man in this country to get the schemes of the government. In fact, 94% of the employment opportunity in the country is not provided by the large corp. The priority should be the youth, the senior citizen, the women-led development, rural sector, and last comes the corporate sector. Union Budget 2025 is nearing. My dear friends, it is very important to look at the state of the economy. The present state of the economy, where the inflation is skyrocketing, the growth rate in the country, even though it is GDP growth is between 6% to 7%, the growth rate of the GDP is not that aggressive. The third important point to be noted is the fiscal deficit and the revenue deficit is also not doing great. Considering all these parameters, without getting into the numbers of all these economic fundamentals, we have to understand there are many measures that the government has to bring in as part of the Union Budget 2025 to revive the economy. Leave alone the economy growing, leave alone that the middle class people will get the benefit of the taxation. The Union Budget 2025 should address the economy in such a manner that the economy is not stagnating but grows. It is also very important that the benefit of the present budget should go to the middle class segment. Many of them will ask me why middle class segment should be incentivized or provided more allocation in the present budget. Middle class is the most honest taxpayer in the country. Our tax system is such that we pay income tax, and over and above the income tax we also pay GST, and beyond GST we also pay indirect taxes which are levied by the state government. There are two tier structure which you have, tax structure we have. One is the GST. Other than the GST, we have the state government imposing a lot of taxes like property tax, water tax, entertainment tax, and many other charges which we need to pay to the state government. Considering all these things, looking at broadly, we pay income tax as well as GST. Middle class today in India pay not less than 34% to 48% average tax. That is about both income tax as well as GST. In fact, before 8 months, the union government was actually celebrating the collection of the GST. At that time, I used to mention very clearly, government should not celebrate about GST collection. Rather, government should celebrate the fact how much they collected from the top 10 rich people in the country. But if you see, the top 10 rich people in the country may not pay that much taxes as you may visualize. The fact of the matter is, the top 10 rich people in the country have avenues open for them to plan their taxes using tax havens, and beyond that, with their global trade, they can invoice from one country and ensure that the collection happens in one country, and India is shown as a cost center, wherein so that expenditure is more, loss is shown, and tax outflow is very less. But whereas for the middle class, this avenue is not open. Middle class work very hard in this country, and when they get salary in their hand, they are taxed first 192 of the income tax, where they pay TDS, and then subsequently they get the money. After they get the money, they consume products which are necessary and not luxurious. On necessity, they pay GST. And the total outflow of the tax, both put together, as I said earlier, comes to about 48% to almost certain times 50% also. Considering it, 50% of their earnings go for tax payment alone for both union government as well as state government. That means middle class is really suffering today. So by ensuring that the government taxing the 10%, there should be a policy in the present budget where the government taxes the top 10 rich people in this country and support the middle class by way of exemption or deduction, wherein the middle class don't pay tax up to 15 lakhs. Beyond all these things, the next thing that is impacting the middle class is the real estate prices. You see, the real estate prices are skyrocketing, especially in the metro cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, and many other top cities in the country. The real estate prices are skyrocketing. Today, Not only inflation is there in the food price, that is consumer price index, based on consumer price index, wholesale price index, but also inflation is also there in the assets. For example, real estates, where if you are buying an apartment, for example, today you can't buy an apartment with a decent facility lesser than 2 crores anywhere in this country. That too in metro cities, maybe for 700 square feet or 800 square feet, as the case may be. The UDR may be very less compared to the occupied place. But looking at all these things, middle class is not only suffering because of inflation, food price inflation, but also because of the asset price inflation. So middle class has to be incentivized so that their consumption pattern and saving pattern is revived. It is said that in one of the important news article, in the last 1 year, middle class has cut down their consumption by 30% and poor people have cut down their consumption by 69%. This is not something nice to be noted, because when they cut down on the consumption, especially middle class and the poor, that means they're cutting down on the necessity. That means in our country, the most important segment to be taken care is, one is the poor people by way of government scheme. We cannot categorize the government scheme as a freebie. It is a right of every poor man in this country to get the schemes of the government, for both union government as well as state government. More budget allocation should happen for providing jobs to the youth. Middle class has to increase their consumption, because they have cut down about 30%, which is not good for the economy because of asset price inflation as well as food price inflation. Considering all these factors, what are the top 5 priorities of the union government as part of the Union Budget 2025? First priority is to provide tax benefit up to 15 lakhs to the middle class people who are honest taxpayers. Second is to bring more inclusive development model, where they also, second most important priority, to provide inclusive development model for the senior citizens. The greatest problem of a senior citizen today is about getting taxed even after getting retired. For example, if a senior citizen have saving in the fixed deposit, they are given 8%, but they are taxed anyway. So that there has to be tax-free income for the senior citizen. It is a honor we provide to them, because they worked in this country, retired with the dignity, and they need to live their life with the dignity. That means we have to take care of the senior citizen as part of this Union Budget 2025. And it will also act as an inspiration for the youth in this country, because when the youths are working here, they have to understand one day they are also going to retire. When they retire, is there a social security like insurance and nutrition and accommodation in this country? So that means the government has to show a role model schemes for the youth in this country. When they get old, what type of care that the government provides. There has to be a Care India scheme as part of the Union Budget 2025. The third important priority of the government is to provide incentive, tax incentive for the women entrepreneurs, women startups. Because women, when they start up, they get into the workforce, and when they build organizations, it is not only useful for India, but also around the world. It can even become a global organization. And especially women entrepreneurs who start up business in the rural areas has to be provided more tax incentive, and even the government can think about providing them GST refunds to them, so that it will help them for the working capital facility. Otherwise, they have to go to the bank and pay more interest and get loan to sustain their business. The fourth important priority of the government is to support the MSME, because MSMEs are like nursery, the plants in the nursery. So they have to grow, they have to bloom, and they have to really contribute to the growth of the economy. In fact, 94% of the employment opportunity in the country is not provided by the large corporate. It is the micro, small and medium enterprises which provide employment opportunity. If that is the case, even in the tax contribution, micro, small and medium enterprises provide more tax revenue to the government. When they are the contributor, they have to be incentivized under the present budget, Union Budget 2025. What kind of incentives they require? The tax rate for the MSME, whatever may be the structure, whether they are coming under the LLP or they are coming under the company, there has to be a flat rate of tax of 15% or of 10% to 15% on their income, and not beyond that. Once if you reduce the income tax and try to provide more indirect tax benefits also, that means more money will be available to the MSME, and more money available to the MSME, more contribution and job creation in the country. Why is the government not thinking about incentivizing the MSME so that they can create more jobs locally and to the people who have skills in the respective location? What stops the government in not providing them the tax benefit by way of reduction of tax rate, and also through various indirect tax schemes, by rationalizing with one window clearance mechanism for the benefits of the MSME, I'm very sure there are many startups who can even come and contribute for the growth of employment opportunity in the country. And the fifth important priority should be provided to the rural economy. In the rural economy, that one structure of entity that will really be effective is like the entity that is cooperative societies. Unfortunately, cooperative societies are taxed more than the corporates. There has to be tax benefit that flows to the cooperative society. We all know about social sector, we all know about corporate sector, but the third dimension to an entity is the cooperative sector. The cooperative form of entity combines social focus with the profit for the purpose of distribution to the members of the cooperative society. If the cooperative society has such kind of an effectiveness, especially in the rural areas like Amul, definitely cooperative society has to be provided more incentive of tax compared to corporate setup as well as any other profit oriented entity, because the cooperative movement or cooperative society as such, when they are formed, especially in the rural areas, it provides huge employment opportunity even for the people who are part of the farm sector. So considering it, the tax rate for the cooperative sector, of course the government has tried to reduce it in the last year, but they have to provide more incentive, more opportunities for the cooperative sector to participate in the growth of the rural sector in this country. So accordingly, the tax rate can somewhere be rationalized to 10% or even below that on the income tax, and more benefits also can be unfolded to them by way of schemes if they are operating as a cooperative sector, especially milk cooperatives or cooperatives which are working in the rural segment focusing on agricultural produce. By this process of focusing 5 top sector in the country, definitely budget 2025 will be a great contributor. Any exercise other than focusing the rural sector, focusing on the women-led development, focusing on senior citizen will not be fruitful, and definitely it will be fatal to the economy. So the priority should be the youth, the senior citizen, the women-led development, rural sector, and last comes the corporate sector. The focus should be on the rural sector and not the top 10 rich people in the country. The focus of the government should shift from capitalism, especially from crony capitalism, to cooperative development. Thank you.